News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for a thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
We cut through the noise to get you to the heart of stories that really matter.
And today we're definitely diving deep.
Yeah, we really are. We're looking at a legal battle with huge global significance and profound human stakes right at its core. We're talking about the upcoming International Criminal Court hearing, the ICC, involving the former Philippine president, Rodrigo Duterte.
And his infamous war on drugs.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is pretty clear. We want to unpack the charges, which are complex. We want to demystify the sort of unique legal situation that lets this international case even happen.
Right.
Confront the immense human suffering involved and explore what this landmark proceeding could mean, well, for international justice going forward.
And it's immediate, isn't it?
It really is. Why now? Because there's a crucial hearing, the confirmation of charges hearing already set, September 23, 2025. In The Hague, Netherlands.
Yeah, and look, this isn't just another headline you'll scroll past. That date, September 23rd, it's potentially a really pivotal moment. Well, it's a test, really. A test of the international system's ability to hold powerful figures accountable for alleged, well, crimes against humanity.
That's a heavy term.
It's incredibly grave. And the whole ICC process is designed, to make sure the most serious international crimes don't just vanish. They can't go unaddressed.
Right. And it's taken a while to get here.
Yeah.
The ICC probe itself started almost 4 years ago.
A long road.
Definitely. Building up to this specific, very high-stakes hearing this coming September. So, okay, this date is looming September 23rd. What exactly is going to happen that day in The Hague? What's at stake?
Okay, so that day is what's called a confirmation of charges hearing. You can sort of think of it like a preliminary review.
Like a first hurdle?
Exactly. The judges in pretrial chamber the stirs, they're like the initial gatekeepers. They are not deciding guilt or innocence yet. That's really important. Their main job is to look closely at the evidence the prosecution presents. They need to see if there's enough credible evidence, what lawyers call a prima facie case, to reasonably believe crimes were committed and that Duterte might be responsible.
So, enough to justify moving forward.
Precisely. If they decide that threshold is met, then it warrants a full trial. And this hearing also sets the final scope, basically what the trial will actually focus on.
Got it. And we know some specifics about how it'll run. The prosecution side, for instance.
Yeah, the sources say prosecutors expect to present their evidence, and they plan to call 2 witnesses for this stage.
Okay, 2 witnesses. And what about the defense? Duterte's team.
Well, what's interesting there is that his defense team has apparently signaled it will not be presenting any of its own witnesses, at least not at this confirmation hearing stage.
Okay. Now, you mentioned crimes against humanity. Let's unpack that a bit.
Yeah, it's crucial. It's not just a legal label. It signifies something very specific. A widespread or systematic attack directed against a civilian population.
Widespread or systematic?
Right. And what makes this case so significant isn't just the tragic number of alleged victims, but the argument that these weren't isolated events. The prosecution will likely argue they were part of a state policy, the war on drugs.
And for the people affected. This must be huge.
Immense. For the victims, the families. This hearing is so much more than just legal arguments. It's maybe their first real chance, to confront the awful memories of thousands of killings, the alleged abuses they or their loved ones faced.
And to have that suffering acknowledged internationally.
Exactly, on a world stage.
Okay, let's talk about Rodrigo Duterte himself, former president of the Philippines. For anyone less familiar, he served 6 years, and his presidency was really defined by this very aggressive war on drugs.
That's right.
And the core allegations are tied directly to that campaign, thousands of killings, alleged abuses, all under that banner. And we should probably remind everyone listening, he was arrested earlier this year and transferred to the ICC detention center. That's why this is happening now in The Hague.
Yes, that's key context. And it's also really important to understand Duterte's position on all this. He has consistently, from day one, denied any responsibility for extrajudicial killings under his administration. Vehemently denied it.
So what's the defense argument likely to be?
Well, his legal team is expected to argue the whole case is politically motivated. That's a fairly common defense strategy in these kinds of international cases.
Right.
They'll likely argue that the actions taken were part of a necessary fight against drugs and crime, not some systematic attack on civilians. A legitimate state action, essentially.
Okay, but here's where it gets kind of tricky, right? Because many people will remember the Philippines actually pulled out of the Rome Statute, that's the ICC's founding treaty. They left back in 2018.
They did.
So how does the ICC still have jurisdiction? How can they proceed if the Philippines isn't even a member anymore?
Okay, yeah. This is a really crucial legal point, and it's exactly why the case is moving forward, despite that withdrawal. See, the ICC ruled it still had jurisdiction over crimes alleged to have happened while the Philippines was a member state.
Okay. So for the period they were members.
Exactly. Specifically, that covers from 2011 to 2019. The withdrawal in 2018 doesn't just wipe the slate clean retroactively for things alleged to happen before they left.
So pulling out doesn't get you off the hook for past actions.
That's the principle the ICC is operating under here. It's fundamental to understanding their authority, and frankly, it sets a pretty powerful precedent. It basically says a country can't just leave the treaty to avoid accountability for alleged crimes committed during its membership.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. It's a strong statement from the court. But I guess Duterte's team isn't just accepting that.
Oh, absolutely not. You're right. His lawyers are expected to fight this jurisdiction issue tooth and nail. They'll likely echo the arguments the Philippine government made earlier.
Which were?
That the case is politically motivated, fundamentally flawed, and just completely outside the ICC's proper legal authority. This whole jurisdiction battle is going to be a major fight in itself.
But, beyond all the legal arguments, it's easy to forget this is deeply personal for so many people.
Absolutely.
It's about unimaginable loss, about wanting answers. What are the victims, the families, actually hoping comes out of all this?
Well, the human element here is just paramount. You hear the phrase truth and accountability, but for them, it's not just a phrase. It's this driving need.
Yeah.
They want dignity for the thousands of lives lost. There's a lawyer, Neri Colmenares, represents many victims. He put it very powerfully. He said, the victims are prepared to confront Duterte and the painful memories of killings and abuses under his rule.
Confront those memories.
Yeah. It's about giving a voice to people who've suffered so much and having that suffering finally acknowledged by, well, the highest international court.
And the ICC actually has a specific way for victims to be directly involved, doesn't it?
It does, which is vital. Under the court's rules, victims can formally apply to participate. If they're admitted as victims of the case, they essentially represent the interests of potentially thousands of others affected.
So it gives a collective voice to individual pain.
Exactly. And critically, for accessibility, they don't need to physically travel to The Hague for this.
Oh, that's important.
Hugely important. They'll be represented by a dedicated legal team. That includes lawyers like Cristina Conti from the National Union of People's Lawyers, the NUPL.
NUPL.
Really?
They're a well-known human rights group in the Philippines, right?
Very well known. They often represent marginalized groups. So the victims have strong legal backing. And Conti herself said preparations are underway among victims, their lawyers, and supporters to ensure their voices are heard. So they're making sure those perspectives are central, even without people having to make that long, difficult trip.
And it's not just the direct victims and lawyers, is it? There are other groups involved, too.
That's right. Civil society groups like the Duterte Panagutan Network, which is basically a coalition pushing for accountability for Duterte, they've vowed to monitor everything really closely, both in the courtroom itself and through live streams. They want to keep the pressure on, mobilize support back home for the victims.
Okay, let's swing back to Duterte's defense team then. We talked about the jurisdiction challenge. Are they signaling any other tactics? They called the prosecution's case legally unsound, right? What might that mean?
Well, saying it's legally unsound likely means they plan to challenge pretty much everything. The admissibility of evidence, how reliable the witnesses are.
The basics of the case.
Exactly. They could also argue that, look, tragic things might have happened, but the actions don't actually meet that very high legal bar for crimes against humanity. Remember, it has to be widespread or systematic.
Right, that specific definition.
Yeah. And beyond that, they've also hinted, somewhat vaguely, about potential obstacles that could disrupt the whole process. So it sounds like they're preparing a multi-pronged, aggressive defense.
And how are the victims' groups reacting to talk of obstacles?
With real concern. They're warning these could just be attempts to delay things, maybe even derail the proceedings altogether.
Understandable concern.
Definitely. Neri Colmenares, the lawyer we mentioned, he stressed, it is in the public's interest that the hearing push through. No delays.
And Christina Conti.
She was even more direct. She said, we reject any move for interim release or suspension of the process. The victims deserve their day in court. You can really feel their determination to see this through.
Absolutely. So with all this in play, the legal challenges, the victim's determination, the defense strategy, what does it all mean for the case going forward? What are the possible outcomes from this specific confirmation hearing?
Okay, so basically it could go one of two main ways after this hearing.
Right.
Scenario 1, the pretrial chamber confirms the charges. If that happens, then we move towards a full trial. And that could potentially last for years, lots of evidence, lots of witnesses.
Long process.
A very long process. Scenario 2, the judges do not confirm the charges.
And what happens then?
Well, that's the outcome the victims and their lawyers are fighting hard to prevent. If the charges aren't confirmed, the case against Duterte at the ICC could essentially collapse.
Wow. So the stakes for this hearing are incredibly high.
Extremely high. It's a critical juncture.
And you can imagine back in the Philippines, this whole situation. Well, it's deeply polarizing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This case really throws a spotlight on a deep divide in Philippine society.
How so?
You have Duterte's supporters, many of whom genuinely believe he saved the country from being overrun by drugs and crime. They see his actions, however harsh, as necessary for safety and order.
And the other side?
His critics and victims groups see the drug war as one of the darkest periods in recent Philippine history. They point to thousands of alleged extrajudicial killings, a disregard for basic human rights, for due process. It's a really stark contrast.
Yeah. Two completely different views of the same period.
And that's the complex backdrop to these legal proceedings in The Hague.
But just to bring it back to the victim's message, it seems incredibly strong and unified.
It really is. They are making it absolutely clear. They will resist any attempt to delay or derail this. For them, this hearing isn't just about a former president. It's about finally acknowledging thousands of lost lives and seeking dignity through truth and accountability.
So quite a lot to unpack there in this deep dive. We've looked at a really complex legal fight. Highlighted what is truly a pivotal moment for international justice.
Yeah.
And tried to convey the immense human stakes at the heart of it all. It's this intricate mix of legal precedent, personal stories of loss, and this unwavering push for accountability.
And if you step back for just a second, this confirmation hearing, it really isn't just about one former leader or one country, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, it's about the reach, the enforcement of international law itself in our interconnected world. It's testing the mechanisms we have for holding individuals accountable for the most serious alleged crimes.
Crimes against humanity.
Exactly. Regardless of their past position or their country's borders, it shows, or aims to show, the global community's commitment to justice for the absolute gravest offenses.
That's a powerful point.
Yeah.
And it leaves you, the listener, with something to think about, doesn't it? What is the outcome here, whichever way it goes, whether charges are confirmed or not? What does it ultimately say about that really delicate balance between national sovereignty and global human rights accountability?
Yeah, where's that line drawn?
Right. And what message does it send to leaders everywhere about the potential long-term consequences of their actions, maybe years after they've left power? Something to definitely keep thinking about.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.